Good morning. Good morning, good people. Today is Saturday, August 23rd, 2025. My name is Edward Bevilacqua, and here we are, Department of Career Services, actually G.school. This is Saturday, so it's G.school. It's the weekend. Monday through Friday, it is Department of Career Services, but our goal is always the same, to help our students and interested people experience this life in such a way that when we go on to what's next, when our body can no longer function and our soul continues, we are on the right trajectory for what comes next. What dreams may come when we have shuffled this mortal coil gives us pause and makes us rather bear those ills we have than to fly off to others we know not of. And thus, conscience does make cowards of us all. Right, so says Hamlet. So says William Shakespeare. I'm going to shake that spear. Uh-oh. Protein powder, throat. Tickle, try to wash away. Okay, so here we are. This is G.school episode number, what is it? Where do we go? Okay, who's still? 169, episode number 169. We do 2 of these a week. So tomorrow will be 170. That's 85 weeks. So for 85 weekends, we have been doing G.school. Not too shabby. Building better habits. So it's a habit. All right. So what is our theme of today? Our theme of today is Evangelia Prima. What? Yeah, Evangelia Prima. Why is that interesting? Why am I saying what? Well, because Thursday, what not a baby, buenos dias, G to G, CMW to work, OMW, LOVU. What does that mean? LOVU, LUVU, 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 Luvu. Okay, what not a baby, have a good day, let's chat. See, in the old days it used to be. Now it's. Okay, so Evangelia Prima, Tuesday went cut. Thursday night, I got to give a presentation. Where is that presentation? There it is. Presentation that looked like this. Oops, not like that. That's the old one. That's the old one. The new one says Evangelia Prima. Sorry, Evangelia Prima, not Sola. And I asked these people who for weeks, for years have been going to Bible study, pastors, deacons, elders. I asked, what does that mean? What language is it? Everybody got Latin. I said, that's right. It's Latin. Evangelia. What does that remind you of? And somebody said, evangelist. Right, right. What does that mean? Someone who goes out. An evangelist is someone who goes out. And what? Preaches the good news. What is the good news? Gospel. Right. So Evangelia is Gospels in Latin. An evangelist is somebody who goes out preaching the Gospels. That's something everybody should know. Everybody who says they're an evangelist should know. Oops. So it's safe to say nobody knew. And there was a couple, oh, yeah, cool. Aha, right, right. Evangelist is someone who goes out preaching the good news. What does that mean? Does that mean they're out preaching the Old Testament? Does that mean they're out preaching Paul? No, doesn't. Okay, so an evangelist, Evangelia, Prima, gospel first. So the theme of that night was how to evangelize non-Christians in jail. In fact, the title, The Simple Truth, Evangelizing to Non-Christians. A minimalist, from below, gospel-only Christology to help non-Christians find Jesus. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Talk more about that, but let's talk about advice from an 80-year-old. Advice from an 80-year-old. Remember that 80% of the success in any job is based upon your ability to deal with people. Right. Even if they have you in a room writing code or doing whatever, watching cameras, it's all about dealing with people. It's not 80% of the job, it's 80% of the success in any job. Okay, talk. Jill Bolte Taylor, stroke of insight. So Jill Bolte Taylor is a woman who was a Harvard scientist studying the brain. Studying what's the difference between the brains of schizoaffective people and normal people, the actual brain. What is different about it? So somebody who is really smart, at a really good school, doing something really important, and one morning she had a stroke. And it lasted for several hours. Well, several hours passed between when it started and when she was taken to the hospital. And she remembers what happened and what was going on. And as a scientist, she describes it as more filled with awe and wonder and I'm going to learn from this than fear. So when something would happen, she would say, aha, that's what's going on. Right. And she would notice that the two hemispheres of her brain, and during the TED Talk, she has an actual brain. She pulls it out and she says, basically, watch this. The brain has two hemispheres that are actually, if you go like that, that opens up. And it's connected at the bottom by something called the corpus callosum, which has 300 million fibers that are going back and forth, connecting the two hemispheres. And she points out that the hemispheres do different things. Different things. Her stroke was in the left hemisphere, which controls the right side of the body, but it also is more of precise thinking. Hey, you got to buy bananas, things like that. And the right hemisphere, which controls the left side of the body, is more of emotions. There's no language. Yeah, so that would be one of the best ways to describe it. There's no language in the right hemisphere. So her left hemisphere would flicker out for a while as the neurons are getting destroyed before it could reconnect. And she could just experience things through the right. And she had a very profound experience of what that was. She goes on to say that when the right hemisphere is working, everything is connected. We're all one in this thing. When she puts her hand on the side of the shower, she's trying to take a shower before she figured out what was going on. The pixels of her hand blended in with the pixels of the wall. And so she seemed connected and expansive. And then the left side would come in and she would say, hey, I need to get help. Something's wrong here. And then it would go out. So she would go back and forth. She advocates that we need to tap into this right hemisphere. We're all connected at sometimes, connect into it sometimes, rather than the always I'm separate from you. You're you, I am me. And there's probably a crossover that can be made between that and Ramachandran's Gandhi neurons, where he says our neurons are all communicating with one another. Okay, so we watch Joe Bolte Taylor again because we're trying to understand who am I and why do I behave the way I do. This is coming to the end. Tomorrow's the end of week 2 inside my skull-sized kingdom. So it's understanding how the brain works and how it works on me, how I am a function of what's going on in my brain. So we see many things from the Joe Bolte Taylor one, that when my brain malfunctions, whammo, I am malfunctioned. You have a stroke and you're not who you were. I think she says she had 10 years of recovery, and you could imagine that was the best recovery possible to get back to not exactly where she was, because in that 10 years that she had to go back to here to get to this point, science moved way on. So I think she's now mostly doing speaking, talking about what she learned. She certainly was when we started this, watching this 14 years ago. Okay, so who am I? Why do I behave the way I do? And we just have to get that it's what's going on in our. Now, does that mean that God or the Holy Spirit doesn't have an impact on what we do? No, it doesn't mean that, but it does mean that if something happens to our brain, we're not who we were. So you could be the most holy person there was, the most spirit-filled person there was, and somebody damages your brain or you have a stroke, and guess what? That goes away. Which an interesting thing happened on Thursday at the event. There was pushback. So the starting point was, guys, pretend you are non-Christians. If you want to evangelize to non-Christians, you got to think like a non-Christian. You have to see the world the way they see it. So take your Christian beliefs, put them over here in this metaphorical bag. Don't worry, put it back on later, and be like children, students learning. very, very hard for everyone, impossible for some people. And the interesting thing is, not exclusively, not totally, but to a large extent, large extent, the more religious you were, the more rigid you were, the more legalistic you were. And an interesting point happened when we got to the concept of God is in all things. God is in all things. Because some people said, no, God isn't in a rock. Why? Who made the rock? Who created the conditions for the rock to be made? Who was that? Well, God. Okay, so why can't God be in the rock? Because he's not. Why? Because he's not. Okay, but think about it. Is there any energy in a rock? No. Really? Are you sure about that? Tell me about what is a rock made of? Minerals. What are minerals made of? You get down to elements. What? Let's just say it's a chunk of iron. What is iron made of? Atoms. What are atoms made of? Subatomic particles. Is there any energy in there? Is there anything happening? Yeah, it's not just a lump of iron. The iron is made of energy. And what is spirit? Pure energy. So why can't God be in the rock? In the subest of subatomic particles? What's smaller than a subatomic particle? Who knows? Maybe it's the presence of God. Okay, well, so let's go back. Let's summarize today's kind of a hodgepodge. When evangelizing to non-Christians, Evangelia Prima, Gospels first. You might have one shot at it, and the thing is from the bottom up. From the bottom up. And with that, we'll say, and we were almost going to say the words, but we're not going to say the words right now. We're going to basically say, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. Sometimes, occasionally, like today, this is more of a stream of conscious. Here's what's on my mind. Here's a review of something important there, or kind of not important, but say a milestone that happened in life. And milestone, something that it was this way before, and now it's going to be this way after. So I want to kind of put that stake in history, but our fundamental purpose is to build better habits, create a routine. The routine would be watching this every day, and then have it become a habit and learn from that all we need to do, create a routine, and then repetition, repetition, repetition. And then we can get to the point of having a subroutine. That is, every time we're building a routine where we're going to do repetition, 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 we try to do it just a little bit better every time we do it. All right, all right, all right. And with that, we're going to say, and cut. Or as Matthew McConaughey would say, all right, all right, all right, all right.